Hello, this is Clint Welding, also known as SpongicX. So, a few days ago, I was digging through some old boxes in my closet and I came across some very interesting things. I thought I lost a lot of these, but. So, in a previous video where I went behind the scenes of my series, Knick Clunk and Treela, I revealed some details of the original concept for the series. How before it was conceived as an action comedy drama series like it is now, it was originally supposed to be a comical, kind of like it was supposed to be like a comical series, kind of like the old Looney Tunes shorts and stuff like that. And so I mentioned how my old artwork was very crude and I was very embarrassed by it, and I mentioned how there were a lot of characters who were scrapped in the version that it is nowadays, but surprisingly, I came across some early concept art for this series, and so I don't have the oldest concept art. When I first came up with this series, it was back around like 2002 or 3, where the pictures I found were more like from 2009, so 10 years ago, when during like my last few years of high school. And so this was where the series was getting closer to where I wanted it to be. Like, this was at the phase where it was starting to become more than just a comedy, but a lot of things have changed in the process. But I thought I'd go back and show some of my early artwork, and so some of this might be a little embarrassing because my artwork was very bad back then. Some of them were all right, but a lot of these were from before I had Photoshop, so when I messed up, I messed up. With Photoshop, when I mess up, I can just easily, undo my mistakes. But I wasn't able to do that with pencil and paper back then. But so in this first image we have here, we can see a colored pencil drawing of a primitive version of Nick, like standing out in a forest area. And so, just a heads up, originally when I created the characters Nick and Clunk, they were similar to characters like Bugs Bunny or Sonic the Hedgehog. They did not wear clothes. So it might be kind of strange for those who are used to seeing my characters, seeing them like this. I mean, because nowadays Nick and Clunk wear pants, but back then they didn't. But I just remember kind of looking back at these and I was thinking like, oh, I need to do something to spice up the character designs, and and so here we can see concept art of some of the early villain designs. So before Scorpion was the main villain, he was actually a henchman, and so you can see him in the upper left. His design is similar, but so you'll definitely notice at least one familiar-looking character and two that definitely don't look like they've been shown in the current comics I've been working on. But so over to the left, bottom left, is an early primitive design of Slits the Weasel, back when he was called Sniper the Weasel, and that character went through a lot of different phases, but I'll get to that eventually. And at the center bottom is the original main villain I had for the series, called Armadon the Armadillo. Over time, I kind of lost interest in that character, though, and I reinvented him as the character Fear the Fox. But over to the right is one of the earliest villains I had. He originally, when I first made this as a comedy series, the armadillo was paired with a bumbling, like a brutish henchman bear character named Bo. And so we can see him taking a pretty brutal beating over to the right. And so yeah, in the end though, I had a lot of inspiration over the years, and I just decided I didn't want the series to be a pure comedy anymore. And eventually, these original characters just didn't really suit the direction I was taking it, and so I changed them drastically. And so here we have another early concept art of Armadon. Here's like a design where I gave him spikes on his shell, so very different from his earlier designs where he didn't have the spikes. And before I gave Knick Clunk and Treela superpowers, I originally planned on giving them weapons that had like some kind of elemental power, but eventually I realized that's been kind of done to death, like characters with fire swords, ice swords, electric swords. So I thought it'd be more interesting to give them actual elemental powers. And then up at the center was the original fourth member I had for the team. So originally there were supposed to be 3 squirrels and a very unlikely fourth member. He was a made-up creature called a Powgic, and I named him Plop. He was supposed to be like a pink little blob thing who could have telekinetic powers. But so looking back on some of these old drawings, it makes me kind of glad that I ditched this character over time, because looking back on it, it's like, this probably would have been the Jar Jar Binks of the series. And, I had a very different sense of entertainment back then. So I've grown up over the years, and I don't really like some of the directions I took in these original drawings. So yeah, Plop unfortunately was scrapped in the future, and although they did eventually get like a temporary fourth member with well, not temporary, but they did get a fourth member in the form of Beth the Bunny, but she's more of kind of like their communication and transportation expert, so she's not actually out there with them. She needs to be with her responsibility, she needs to be someplace safe, and it's too risky for her to be out in the open. So yeah, in a way, a fourth member is still there on the team, just not the way Plop was originally. Then here we have like an early creature design. Like some of this artwork isn't necessarily Knick Clunk and Treela related, but it's still old concept art I found, and I thought I'd show it anyways. And I had a pretty like back in high school, I drew some very dark stuff, and even to this day, it questions me how one minute I can go from drawing really cute, cuddly characters to all of a sudden drawing something like this. And yep, even I'm puzzled. I don't know why, but originally I had like plans for like some kind of evil squirrel character named Darkwood. Yeah, eventually I thought, the character looks and sounds kind of stupid, so I scrapped him altogether. Yikes! Wow. Ugh, what was wrong with me back then? I drew some really strange crap. Oh god, like some of these. My old artwork looks so wonky. Hard to believe this was from like 10 years ago. Seriously, without Photoshop, my art is terrible. So here's an interesting I don't even remember doing this, but apparently my original concept for uh Slits the Weasel was supposed to be like some kind of mad professor character, which eventually that went down to Fear the Fox's portrayal. But I guess eventually over time I must have thought like, this is probably too similar to the Professor Weasel from Conker's Bad Fur Day. So yeah, I'm kind of glad that I gave him more of like the brutish henchman role instead of like the evil scientist role. It gives him more of a personality. And so yeah, you might have noticed how in some of these early pictures I tried giving the characters more detailed looking designs. So like I use like certain pencil strokes to make them look kind of fuzzy or furry. And yeah, I like to experiment back then. It's a little harder to do that kind of stuff when you're drawing on a touch tablet though. But and it was a lot harder for me to draw back then because I really didn't use references. So a lot of these images you see were straight from my head. I did not have any references in front of me when drawing these characters. And even to this day, I try drawing without references, but there eventually come points where I struggle too much to the point where I just go back and pull out an old image I drew as a reference. But for the most part, I like to draw things directly from my head. Yikes! What the heck is that? So originally there was a point where the character Plop, I decided to give him like an evil brother character. He is like this one-eyed creature. I don't even recall giving him a name, but I I don't even recall giving him a name, but I do remember that he was originally supposed to be like the evil brother who betrayed his kind, and I eventually lost interest in that character as well. He mostly just like he was like a floating blob with no. He just had like these floating hands, and he could shoot lasers out of his eyes. That was about it. Man, I had some really weird creature designs. So yeah, one thing you might have noticed is that out of all the characters, Treela has mostly retained most of her original design qualities. I mean, yeah, eventually I did give her a different outfit, but it's like when I first started like making the final version of Knick Clunk and Treela, she was wearing this exact same outfit you see in the concept art. I did redesign her body shape a little bit though, try to give her more of like a feminine design, and so she has more curves and I mean her old shape design almost makes her look like a sausage and And then Clunk originally still had like that weird poofy hair design, and eventually I grew sick of that and decided to give him a haircut, and I suppose that's it. So those were all my concept drawings of Knick Clunk and Treela. So yeah, I'm sorry if this was embarrassing, but it's pretty embarrassing for me. It's like looking at old embarrassing baby photos, except of my own creations. So it just reminds me that like I don't see myself as a great artist, but it makes me glad to say, well, at least I'm not like this anymore. uh, some people can look back at their old drawings and smile upon them. I look back at most of my old drawings and I just like shake my head in embarrassment. I mean, yeah, some of these were kind of cool, but I just can't stand how sloppy some of this looks, and there's a lot of inconsistencies in some of these drawings, though. It's like sometimes I can't even decide if I want the characters to have 4 fingers or 5 fingers, and nowadays they have 5 fingers, but. Well, that's all you have to show for now. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Goodbye.